Just because you decide to start following Jesus does not mean that all your problems suddenly go away. I mean, we still have problems like dealing with sin in our lives every day. We still have problems like anger management and even people problems, with the people in our lives. And, there's even this big problem of feeling like you're in a spiritual stall or you're just stuck spiritually. Hey, friends, this is Gabe Kolstad from Westside Community Church, and I want to follow up from what we've been talking about at Westside, which is we're getting ready for a season that we think could draw us closer to God. And if you're feeling a little bit stuck, I have some encouragement for you today. I actually personally have been stuck many times in my own faith life, and in some ways it feels like it's kind of a recurring thing that happens. I suppose it's not unlike your physical life where you have these ups and you have these downs, you have these wins and you have these losses, and sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I think that's a reality of any part of our life. And for me, one of the memorable times when I was just going through one of those seasons that felt dry, spiritually. In other words, I felt like, God, where are you? Like you might feel right now. It seems like I pray and it bounces right back at me. It seems like, I sit down to maybe read the Bible or do some sort of spiritual practice, and it's almost like it's just me and you're not there. And I remember going through one of those seasons a while back, and then I got on an airplane with a book that a friend gave me. And I remember it like it was yesterday because I was sitting in seat 23C of this airplane, which has since then become my favorite seat in an airplane. And several times since then, I've had the privilege to sit back in seat 23C, where I just remember God touching my heart, about something big. And it was embarrassing because I'm sitting there on this plane having this spiritual breakthrough, which was great, except that I was just bawling and everybody was looking at me like I was a crazy person, but I couldn't hold it back. It was so real and it was so special. And I just have these journal pages from that moment that I've looked back on. Sometimes, to remind myself that if I'm in another dry season, that happened and that it could happen again. Sometimes to remember what it was that God spoke to me in that time that was really special and clear, super clear about the direction that my life is supposed to go. But you might be in a season right now where you're kind of asking that question, God, where did you go? If you're dealing with leftover anxiety from all of the stuff that our world's been going through, or if you're looking at now this new reality of more conflict in the world, as we have the whole situation with Russia and Ukraine currently, as I'm recording this right now, and we don't know where it's going to go. And you might be looking at all the pressures, you might be looking at all of the things that have been confusing in this season for you, and just be asking the question, God, where did you go? I feel like I'm spiritually stuck. Well, I have some good news for you, and that is we're beginning a season that historically we know is a time when God really pulls people toward himself. It's called the Lent season. It's that season before Easter. We're building up now in our season, on our calendar. As we record this episode, it's right on the crest of something called Ash Wednesday, which is not in the Bible, but it is a historical time of 40 days leading up to Easter that's been special in history, where people sense God reaching out to them. There's a time of leaning in spiritually that people do all around the world. And you got to understand something, even if you're not classifying yourself as a Christian or maybe not even as a spiritual person, if that many people around you are leaning in, it might actually affect you. You might actually feel what they're leaning into, and it might have a good impact on you. And so maybe if you're kind of sensing God's doing something or there's something else going on in your life than normal, I want you to consider that it might be God pulling you toward himself right now. And there's some things that we know that that God works through. So I want to help you achieve a spiritual breakthrough in this season if you felt like you've been spiritually stuck. In culture, sometimes they say this. They say, you will succeed in what you emphasize. And I've even used that as a leadership principle with training teams and training other leaders. You'll succeed in what you emphasize. The truth is whatever you focus on, you're going to have a lot more impact in. And so maybe for us to look around and go, it would be good if I emphasized my connection to my Creator right now. If if I emphasized what it meant to have that soul deep connection to the one that gave me life, that wants to connect with me, that wants to give me direction, that wants to give me fulfillment, that wants to pull me toward himself, I mean, that could be a really good thing right now for all of us. And in the Bible, in Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 13, the prophet says, if you look for me wholeheartedly, this is what God told Jeremiah, if you look for me wholeheartedly, you'll find me. So what about it? I mean, what about this season being that time when you go, I could probably do that for this next little while, to look for God wholeheartedly? Have you ever thought about asking God, would you just show yourself to me? If you're real, would you show yourself to me? If you're real, would you do something that shows me that you're real? Maybe something tangible, visible, something you can experience as a person. I mean, if God did it for others in the past, why wouldn't he do it for you? And Jeremiah says, if you look for me wholeheartedly, you're going to find me. So we know Easter is a season when God does special things. And Easter's coming up this year, 2022, on April the 17th. It's a Sunday, of course. And Lent is the 40-day period leading up to Easter. It begins on Ash Wednesday, which this year starts on March the 2nd. And if you're listening to this after March the 2nd, don't worry about it. Just jump in where you are. I mean, God can work through all kinds of things. The main thing he wants is to get your attention so that he can have your affection, so that you can have a relationship with him through Jesus. In the Bible, we see that 40 days is a significant period of time. I mean, it represents long enough, I suppose, for God to get our attention. It was, after all, 40 days of rain that flooded the earth back in the days of Noah. It was 40 days of fasting that Moses did before he received the 10 Commandments, all of that original divine instruction from God for people that still to this day guides us. It was 40 days of fasting that Jesus underwent before he began his public ministry. 40 days is long enough to get our attention. And this season of Lent lasts for 40 days. And I want to encourage you to begin this time with maybe an intention on leaning into God, leaning closer to God, no matter where you're coming from. Maybe you're somebody who's a devout, sold out, full-on follower of Jesus, and you're like, man, this is very familiar stuff to me. Well, great. Let's lean in together. Maybe you're somebody who's just tiptoeing or experimenting or exploring on the front edge of this whole thing called faith. You could say, I want to see what will happen if for 40 days I lean in to this idea of getting closer to God. Well, in Luke chapter 18, Jesus tells a story that I think gives us some instruction here. And I want to read you some of these verses because I think there's a lot that we can pull away from it. So Luke chapter 18, it says, one day Jesus told his disciples a story to show them that they should always pray and never give up. And he's always, encouraging us to persist. It says in verse 2 of Luke 18, there was a judge in a certain city, he said, who neither feared God nor cared about people. A widow of that city came to him repeatedly saying, give me the justice in this dispute with my enemy. The judge ignored her for a while, but finally he said to himself, I don't fear God or care about people. Some judge that guy was. But this woman, he said, is driving me crazy. I'm going to go see that she gets justice because she is wearing me out with her constant requests. Then the Lord said, learn a lesson from this unjust judge. Jesus is like, man, this guy was worn out by the request of this lady. And he basically says in Luke 18, God wants you to be persistent like she was. Because even if all the stuff is against you, if you're persistent, the judge, God, is going to hear your request and say, I'm going to make sure you get justice. And so if you're somebody right now who's going like, I just don't know, how could I get a spiritual breakthrough? It feels like I'm just in this dry season. What we know is if we lean in, you'll succeed in what you emphasize. If you seek God with your whole heart, you will find him. So I want to give you some tips on how then do you get closer to God in a season like this. And then I want to give you a phone number you can text with a special message in order to get a Bible reading plan. So stay tuned for just a second because I want to share with you some things that I think will help. One is I want you, number one, to decide on a breakthrough that you want to experience in your life. Maybe for you, it's a physical breakthrough, like a health thing, or maybe it's a medical kind of issue. Maybe for you, it's a marriage or a relationship, a romantic relationship breakthrough, or another parenting or sibling or, kind of work relationship, friend relationship, some relationship. Maybe for it's a financial thing and you're like, wow, we're really struggling. Or for you, it might be a direction kind of thing where I got to make a decision and I don't have the answers. But what's a breakthrough that you'd like to experience in your life? Maybe for you, it's a power kind of thing, a habit deal where you're like, I really want to break this habit, and I've tried and I've tried and I've tried, but I just don't seem to have the power. Well, for you, what would be the breakthrough that you want in this season? And what if you were to say, I'm going to take 40 days and I'm going to seek God in this with the intention of receiving this breakthrough? Apparently, according to Luke 18, he's listening and he's interested. Second thing, I want you to increase your daily focus on God. What would that look like for you to increase your daily focus on God? Your awareness that he's right here with you, your intentionality on prayer and just thanking him for things you see around you, or even asking him for the breakthroughs and for even helping other people, interceding for other people, prayer. And then your intentionality on listening to what he's saying through the Bible, his word, which you can get in the Bible app. We're going to tell you about that in just a sec. But increase your intentionality daily on focusing on God. Third thing, and this is a big one, okay, listen close, give up something meaningful for 40 days. That's called fasting. And traditionally, it was talking about giving up specifically food. And it definitely has evolved in the sense that there's many things you can fast. You could fast from social media. I know a friend's doing that right now. You could fast from alcohol. You could fast from a relationship that's toxic. You could fast from food or from certain foods or from sugar, or you could fast from, entertainment of all kinds. You could fast from lots of things, but the point is that you're going to reduce the amount of other clutter in your life so you have more attention to focus on God. So I want to encourage you to think about what's something meaningful that you could give up for 40 days so that you could focus more of your energy, your mind, body, soul on your relationship with God. We know from Scripture that Jesus even said some spiritual breakthroughs don't happen except for through fasting and prayer. And there's something special and powerful about us focusing more of our relationship, more of our attention on God. Number 4, I want you to keep a journal of your thoughts, your prayers, your questions, your observations. Journals are powerful. I used to do it all by hand, in an actual little book. These days, it's a little more digital on my phone or in my notes app or something. But how are you recording what you see or what you think, what you feel? Those are things you might want to go back and review that I think God speaks to us through those things. Sometimes we have these experiences, but we don't stop and record them. They just go by. They just whoosh on by. And if somebody asks you at the end of the week, so what happened this week? You'd be like, I don't remember. And maybe you need a way to go back and say, well, I remember God told me this. I was in seat 23C. I remember that because I wrote it down and I reviewed it so many times. And it's just important that we have a way we can record what God was doing or speaking or what we were feeling or seeing or asking. And I hope you'll do that. Now, we're going to do a 40-day Bible reading plan called Journeying with Jesus. It's a Lent Bible reading plan. Again, Lent is that 40-day season leading up to Easter. And you can actually join that by texting the word Lent, L-E-N-T, to 503-905-9067. And I'll send you the link to join me in this interactive Bible reading plan on the Bible app, the most used digital tool for reading the Bible. Hundreds of millions of people around the world using it. It's an awesome little tool that I think you're going to love. And you can just jump right in. Click the link when I send you the text, reply to your text, and you'll be in like Flynn. And I hope that you'll do that. I really want to go on a journey with you because I think God's going to do something special in your life. Now, if you can imagine having that breakthrough, if you can imagine being on the other side of that dry spell. Me, it was in seat 23C when I'm just, bawling. Hopefully it won't be so embarrassing for you. But, what happened in that seat was my soul was filled up. And if you can imagine being a person that has that sense of satisfaction, fulfillment, peace, joy, direction, that's what I know God wants to give you in this season. And he can do it as we lean in to this relationship that he's given us. So I hope you'll take me up on this offer. Thank you so much for joining me for this midweek motivation episode of the Westside podcast. I hope you'll do 2 things right now. I hope you'll, 1, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already and share it with some friends. And secondly, I hope you'll pop by a Westside service this Sunday even. You can find out more at westsidecommunitychurch.com. And we would love to see you either online or on site. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you soon.